Have you ever imagined finally feeling well, and instead of feeling excited or exhilarated or beyond relieved, there's a part of you that is feeling anxious? Or have you ever quietly wondered to yourself, if I get better, who am I? What's left of me? Or maybe you've been so deep in chronic illness that it feels safer to say, stay where you are at than to face the unknown future of what it means to be healthy again. If you said yes to any of those questions, you're not crazy. This episode is for you. Today's episode continues our series exploring the emotional weight of chronic illness. No protocols, we're not trying to do any strategies, no fixing you. In this series on chronic illness and mental health, I've been sharing things that anchored me on my journey to wholeness, even in seasons when I felt like I was making zero progress. The goal is simple: to slow down and talk about the matters of our hearts. To sit together for a moment and ask, with who you are right now, not the future healed version of you, how do you tend your heart? How do you find emotional internal health when chronic illness anxiety is quietly shaping how you see the future? This is for you if you've been sick for months or years. And if you're not sure if you'd call yourself chronically ill, but you've been carrying something heavy for a long time, this is for you too. In today's episode, we're going to be diving into chronic illness anxiety and fear of the future, the difference between being impacted by your illness and becoming your illness, and a powerful journal prompt you can do today to reveal any hidden fears you may have about getting better that may be keeping you from getting better. If you've been doing everything you know how to do and you're still not better, I hope this episode meets you exactly where you are. Not to fix you, not to promise a breakthrough, but to gently surface something that may be quietly influencing your healing more than you realize. And P.S., in this episode, I'll be sharing from my own faith background because that's where many of these lessons were shaped for me. But these conversations are for anyone who's looking for steadfastness, clarity, and courage as you look towards a healthier future. I hope this blesses you. Hey friend, welcome to the Better Belly podcast. If you're currently trying endless supplements, doctor visits, and diet changes to heal your mystery symptoms, you are in the right place. We're here to solve the real root causes behind your gut, hormones, skin, sleep, and brain concerns. Literally anything and everything in your body. My name is Allison Jordan. I'm a functional medicine practitioner that has supported over 150 clients just like you to heal problems that no one has been able to fix. You don't need a perfect diet or a random supplement you found on Instagram to heal. You need a proven system that heals your whole body from the inside out. That's what I'm here to share with you, episode by episode. It's time to make health easy again. And just as a reminder, this information is not meant to diagnose, manage, or treat disease. Always consult with your own health practitioner before you make any changes to your health. Okay, guys, I'm so excited for our next episode in this series. If you've missed any of it, you're new to the podcast, welcome. This is the Better Belly podcast. We have already had 3 other episodes. So we've talked about chronic illness and loneliness, how to process or regulate your emotions when there's a lot of them, especially in chronic illness. And then also what to do when you're dealing with chronic illness anxiety, not so much about the future, but about your own symptoms, when it just feels like you're spiraling a little bit about your own symptoms that may be worsening or not getting better, etc. That's what we've covered so far. Today, we're talking about something that I discovered when I was healing, not actually from my chronic illness, which was more on the IBS, constipation, acid reflux side of things, but when I was healing from depression in college. I had been struggling with and diagnosed with anxiety and depression since like 6th grade. So by the end, this was like midway through college, so almost 10 years of dealing with mental health issues. And I realized some point in college, as I was really trying to work through this, that I was a little afraid of who I was or how my life was going to be if or when I no longer had depression and anxiety. This was And I don't know, honestly, like, I'll be honest, I don't know how many people struggle with this experience. So maybe this episode hits very few of you, but I know that there's got to be some of you out there who maybe have similar experiences to me. Maybe not exactly the same, but for me, what it felt like and how I thought of it is, you're working so hard and you talk about how much you don't like being depressed and how much I didn't like being anxious, and I'm on this medication and I go to counseling and I don't feel like I get better and I'm just discouraged. I want to not have this weight, emotional weight on myself all the time. And at the same time, I realized that I had a moment where I was thinking about what my life would be like if I didn't have these things. And what I actually felt was anxiety of, oh no, if I'm healthy, because that's how I thought of it back then. Before I'd had any physical illness, I really thought of my mental illness of like truly just a form of sickness. If I'm healthy, that means I like have to do things. There's all these responsibilities that I had been not able to or not consistently following up on. I would do things like my schoolwork, but I just knew that I didn't have as many pressures on my life and I didn't follow up as many things because of my mental health. And it really actually gave me anxiety to realize, oh, I won't have an excuse to say I can't do these things. And I realized that that wasn't anything shameful. It was very odd for me that I had no shame about that of like, oh, it means I'm truly lazy, or I didn't assign any identity over that. It was an observation and it really made me think, I wonder if there's any part of me that is actually reluctant to get better because there's some hesitancy, there's some anxiety, there's some felt pressure I was intrigued by the concept of, oh, somehow being well means I have to do more. Being well means I don't get a break. And what if I need to take a moment to rewrite some of those stories of even what it means to be well, who I am when I'm well, the pressures that I do or don't put on myself that I may even be putting on myself while I'm sick. And so here's how I learned about all this. Let's like back up even further. Like, how did this even happen? In college and throughout my whole life, but in college, I read a passage that I'd probably read multiple times before. It was in the Bible. I'm a Christian. My relationship with God is very integral with me, honestly, feeling sane on a day-to-day basis. And I know that not everyone's going to feel that way listening to this episode. So, and maybe it's about a different religion or it's not about religion at all, but just know that this is a place, this story is for anybody. And it's not saying that you have to be Christian for this to make sense or to be relevant or to even speak to your heart. So that is my intent. But I'm just going to read just a really short passage. This is what I read that led me to this observation and honestly to really beautiful growth internally that helped prep me to honestly enter healthiness well. Because hint for the story, I do overcome depression and anxiety. I haven't had any extensive bouts of depression or anxiety since then. And maybe that won't be the case for the rest of my life, but it is the way it is right now. And that is beautiful and amazing. It's something I never thought I might be able to achieve. And so if that's something you're interested in, whether it's for your mental health or for physical health, I think this would be really interesting. Here it is. The passage comes from John chapter 5, verses 5-9. If you have a Bible or want to look this up yourself. The stories of Jesus. It says, one man who was there who had been an invalid for 38 years. So they're at this watering area that's supposed to be a place that someone might be able to find healing if they get into the water at the right time. And so this person had been unable to be functional, an invalid, unable to be functional for 38 years. That was a long time. That was longer than I'd been alive when I was reading the passage. It's still longer than I've been alive, for anyone who cares to know. 38 years, right? So some of you listening, maybe you're like, yeah, I've been sick for 38 years. I am, I've been sick my whole life. I've been sick for 38 years. Like, he's been sick a long time. And it says, when Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he'd already been there a long time, he said to him, do you want to be healed? And remember, this guy's sitting by a pool that's known for its healing properties. There's a lot of other people around trying to be close to this pool to get healed. And I remember when I first read this passage, I was kind of like, when I was reading this in college, I suddenly became super angry because it felt like Jesus was asking me that question. I suddenly felt this question into myself: do you want to be healed? And I was kind of mad, like, what do you think I'm doing all this work for? Why do you think I'm on medications and going to counseling and like praying about this and journaling about it? What do you think I'm doing with my life? Do I want to be healed? What kind of dumb question is this? Genuinely mad. Here's how the passage continues. The sick man answered him, "Sir, I have no one to put me in the pool when the water is stirred up, and while I'm going, another steps before me." He's basically saying, I'm really weak, no one's around to help me, and basically all the other people get in the pool before me. I can't get there fast enough. I'm an invalid. Have you not noticed? I cannot even take care of myself. Jesus said to him, "Get up, take up your bed, and walk." And at once the man was healed, and he took up his bed and walked. And so what's the most interesting part of the story to me when I was reading this wasn't the miraculous him being healed, which is beautiful and emotional and I believe still happens today. But at the time, being depressed and anxious for many years, for 10 years, was not my story yet. I was kind of like, yes, the miraculous has not happened to me yet. I don't know what my story is, but that is not it yet. And coincidentally, it was never it. I've never been miraculously healed. My healing from depression and anxiety and both constipation, IBS, acid reflux, none of these were miraculous moments. They were actually steps taken in a direction. But what was interesting to me again was that question. Why did he ask him this question? In what you actually see in the Bible, there's a theme that this happens over and over again, that God or Jesus, this person, this being that knows everything, asks people questions as if they don't know the answer. And the purpose in this is that the person themselves reflects on it. The person themselves gives the answers. And this isn't new information. The man knows what his reasoning of why he believes he hasn't been healed. But what I really felt was hearing Jesus say, "Do you want to be healed?" And some part of me said, I'm scared of being healed. I'm afraid of who I would be when I'm no longer sick, because I know myself really well when I'm sick. I know my rhythms. I know what I can and can't do. I know how hard to push myself. I know how I might react to certain situations. I know what I can say yes and no to. I know I can say no to things because in my heart, I've determined that that's too much for me to be able to do with my mental health. And well, if I don't have my mental health as more or less an excuse, am I allowed to say no? I didn't know at the time, but that was kind of like some opening up a door to people-pleasing conversations of me basically having a hard time putting up boundaries and saying no to things on my own merit. Like I had to have a reason, like, well, I'm super sick, I'm super depressed, that would just put me overboard. And that might be true. But I literally became aware of it in this reading of this passage. I'm sure maybe some counselor had tried to make me aware of it prior to this point, but it clicked. It made sense. And I was afraid of the future because I was using my sickness as a barrier or a shield from the rest of life, the rest of decisions. I didn't want to have to say I made that decision, but like, oh, my illness made that decision for me. And I do not think, and I am not saying, that my illness, my depression, was just a figment of my imagination so I didn't have to deal with hard things. But I knew when I became aware of it, when I was thinking about this, I never wanted the reason that I was still depressed and anxious to be because I actually was holding myself back. There was like a deep subconscious holding back of staying that way because I couldn't cope with the idea of not having this. And so this applies to physical illness too. When I got IBS, diagnosed with that, when I was diagnosed with chronic constipation and acid reflux and was on these medications, I never for once thought, well, I'm just coming up with these things so I don't have to get out of bed or get off the couch, or so I don't have to go to this event I don't want to go to in the evening. But I'd already worked through that. I'd already been mentally well for at least a year, probably closer to 2 by the time I started developing all my GI symptoms. And just to be clear, for those listening, I'm definitely not this is not prescriptive, as in I, who've never met you, am telling you that it's your fault you're not better because you have a fear of who you are, who you might be if you weren't ill. Not by any means, but I am really curious, and I really did want to share because I think about this a lot, and I thought about it a lot, and it gave me a lot of freedom. I actually had less anxiety once I worked through it, and I remember just journaling about it and thinking through it. I might have talked about it with my counselor of, what are the layers of where does this fear come from, and how can I be prepared to be a better, healthier me mentally, and in my boundaries and in my relationships, even when I don't have depression, and maybe in ways that I was using that as a surrogate for true boundaries, as a surrogate for being able to say no and not feeling like I have to manage other people's happiness. So just to be very, very clear, I'm not saying if you are infected with the parasite and it's causing your symptoms, that's not your fault. If you're being exposed to hidden toxic mold and it's causing your symptoms, that's not your fault. If you have CIRS, chronic immune response syndrome, and that's causing or driving a lot of your symptoms, it's not your fault. And so I'm not saying this, but I hope I wanted to add this huge disclaimer. At the same time, being able to say it and seeing that if there's any part of you that's like, wow, I think there's something accurate there. And that's exciting because it means that if it is there, you get to work on it and think about it. And it can be something that you're just less afraid of as you approach healing. So if this is a part of something, if you're like, hey, that rings true, there's a part of this that feels accurate to me, Allison, what do we do about it? Well, number one, we really want to acknowledge it as just, I'm dealing with this. Oh, that's wild. There's a part of me that's terrified of getting better. By the way, if you're feeling this, please DM me or something on Instagram because I'm so curious if I'm alone, if I hear nothing, maybe someone's out there. But if this rings true, just let me know. DM me on Instagram, send an email to my team. I would love to know that it hits someone in hopefully a good way. But just acknowledging it, be like, oh yeah, this is something I've got going on. Number two, you can release it. It can be really, really tempting. And honestly, there's just sometimes I think there's a fine line between acknowledging you have an illness and being like, I have an illness, it's putting limitations on my life. If you know with spoon theory, just kind of be like, this is as many spoons as I have. If you don't know spoon theory, don't worry about it right now. Or go look it up. It's great, spoon theory. We never want to devalidate ourselves, but we also don't want to over-identify with our illness and say, I am my illness, that's all I am. And if I don't have my illness, I don't know who I'd be. That can make sense. If you've had decades of an illness, that might be confusing. I actually really empathize with this guy when he says, get up, take your bed and walk. Where's this guy walking? Where's he going to go first? And where's he going to go after the first place? Maybe the first place is the bathroom. Maybe the first place might have been the synagogue to go cleanse himself and tell the priest that he was clean. Maybe the first place was going to be his mom or his best friend or to eat some food. But what does he do after that? And what does he do after that? And what does he do after that? And if he's been sick for 38 years, does he have a skill he can go and get labor for? Most people would have gone through training to be an apprentice, to be a woodworker or a carpenter, which is what Jesus was, or a priest. They would have gone through an apprenticeship for being a farmer or whatever type of job that usually their father had. Maybe he was going to go back and be with his dad, but we don't know. Maybe his dad was gone. What does this man do with his life? It really is this weight of beauty, being able to maybe even tear up thinking about having a life where you're not constantly in pain, not knowing what the end of your day is going to be like, having to say no to more things than you want. But there also maybe is a little bit of pressure or a little bit of, who am I? What is left? So just realizing we want to release and say, I'm not my illness. I'm allowed to be realistic about my illness and not push myself as if I don't have this, and advocate for myself that to ask for help from spouse, family, coworkers, whoever's relevant in your life to help you do things that you can't do for yourself with your illness. But we're impacted by illness. We can grieve that. We can gain skills around managing it, like being smoothies. We can even try to normalize it to ourselves. If this is who I am right now, but we are not our illness. We don't need to minimize your value and contribution that you can give even with your illness. You don't have to bring your whole self down of I'm only this illness. And you don't have to say what I was doing, which is this illness is like my excuse to be able to say no to things I find hard to say no to. So you have value and meaning beyond what you bring and contribute to the world. And at the same time, if you didn't have your illness, maybe you would do more, but it's not because you had to be valuable. So what I encourage you to do, what I did a little like what I call a mind experiment, or maybe you could call it like a journal prompt. I want you to imagine, and you can close your eyes right now, or you can do this later. Close your eyes and imagine you're healthy again. You have energy. You are not in pain. You're celebrating with your friends maybe, or you wake up from a really great sleep and you just have life and energy. What happens next? Not like after the celebration. What are you doing? How are you feeling about those things? What types of texts are you getting from friends and family after the celebration? Hey, can you watch so-and-so? Or what type of emails are you finally looking at that you just haven't had the energy to get to? When I did this experiment, and just as you're thinking through things, just note, how are you feeling? And you can write that down. Like, this made me really excited. I'm really excited to go ride my bike again. It doesn't have to all be negative. I'm really excited to be able to just feel a fresh breeze in my hair. I want to go to the gym and get stronger. Or, I'm kind of afraid to have to go look at my bills again and like figure all that out. Or, but just like take note of what are the things that feel like the highlights that are coming to your mind that you're excited about, feel positive. What are the things that maybe the lowlights that there's some fear? And maybe it's similar to my fears. Maybe it's not. But for me, when I did this experiment as a depressed person, my experiment ended up with me feeling overwhelmed that I had no excuse to not use, or I had no excuse to use to avoid what I was responsible for. I just had to do that thing. And so there was some fear of adulting, probably, to use a word. But that I had to realize, I don't think that was my depression speaking. It was my perspective on life and the world. And that clarified for me to what to dig into, not to fix those things, but to just be aware of what I was dealing with, and that it would be potentially hard for me to heal with this hidden anxiety under everything, that maybe a part of me wouldn't really want to heal, or this anxiety would perpetuate my deeper, like my more surface level anxiety and depression. And maybe I would even backfire if I got well, that I would become so like panicked and overwhelmed that I would just spiral back into anxiety and depression again. Like, it's kind of interesting. So, but the happy ending, I did work on these beliefs, and I talked about one of my big lessons in a previous episode that I was able to work through to help me exit depression. And I did successfully exit depression. So my exiting depression was way more than just this one thing of like overcoming a fear of the future. But this definitely helped me exit depression better. And it helped me identify potential beliefs that might have been keeping me there. I don't know. I never felt like this was the one thing or the last thing or the only thing, but it might have been part of something. And addressing this at the very least, would have made, like, if I didn't address it, it would have made my non-depressed self super stressed and highly anxious. So I want to help you avoid this as you look towards a healthy future. I've had so many clients come in. I mean, even just this week, we had a group coaching call, and actually in the past few days, so you might have heard me on another episode address this. It's the same call, but I'm recording these all close together. In the past few days, we had a group coaching call, and there was like a woman on the call in her 60s who'd been on laxatives daily to poop for decades. And just this week, just when she was sharing with us, she had gone poop twice without any laxatives in that week. And maybe that sounds like atrocious to you, like only twice, but that's amazing to her. Like without any, just her body on its own. It brought another person in the room to tears because she just, as of 2016, she's been on laxatives every day to go to the bathroom. And so her hearing that was hope bringing. That was mind blowing. Right. And so I've had so many clients achieve after decades of some issue, not improving after surgeries and medications and doctors and fees and expenses and travel, that suddenly it's gone. And I think most of them handle it well. Most of them seem really happy, but I want that for you, that you're able to really embrace it. So if you want to see any of these client testimonials, you're like, who are all these people? I actually put together 18 pages of all of our podcast testimonials that we have on the podcast and just screenshots, gobs and gobs of screenshots of people's wins from the Better Belly Blueprint. You can go to betterbellytherapies.com/results and just go get that 18 plus page document with all of these testimonials. And you can see that it's different ages, different, men and women, different symptoms, different health histories, how long they were sick, people who were sick for 6 months, people who were sick for 60 years, and pretty much everything in between. People who had most of them already tried everything. They'd already tried diet change. They'd already tried supplements. They'd already tried conventional doctors and blood work and surgeries and procedures, and nothing had worked. And so I want you to be able to go and see what's possible. That is why I literally would not do this if we were not seeing results that people couldn't and aren't getting outside of this. And it is a reproducible process that can help you, whether you're dealing with constipation or diarrhea, whether you're dealing with eczema or an autoimmune condition. So if you want to go see those results, go to betterbellytherapies.com/results. Or if you just want to skip straight to seeing the exact system people are following to get better, just go to betterbellytherapies.com/blueprint and you will see the system I put together that I used to help reverse my constipation, bloating, acid reflux, hormone imbalance, aka no period, and that over 650 clients have also used. So go to betterbellytherapies.com/blueprint if you want to go see that. And otherwise, I hope you guys have a blessed day, that you are encouraged in your spirit, that this episode met you where you needed to be. And again, if you are dealing with just like the kind of the mental struggle bus of chronic illness, I encourage you, go check out our previous episode in the series and be sure to subscribe to the podcast on your podcast player or subscribe to our email at betterbellytherapies.com/subscribe to get notified of upcoming episodes, because we have 2 more episodes coming out. If I'm counting correctly, let me go look. At least 1, maybe 2. I'm still deciding. So be sure to go subscribe, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Hey friend, I hope you loved this episode. If you've been a fan for a while or newly loving this podcast, can you do me a favor? Drop into Apple Podcasts and leave me a review. When you leave a review, you do so much. You help me know you're listening. You can tell me what you're loving so I know what to make more of. And you help others by boosting this podcast so other people like you can find the podcast too. I mean, it's a win-win-win, right? So if you want a way to pay it forward, just go to Apple Podcasts or click the link in my show notes and leave a rating and review. And if you want some more free stuff, just head over to my free Facebook group, betterbellytherapies.com/Facebook, and you can get access to all of my free support for you, including some Facebook group exclusive stuff like my podcast episode vault, where you can search the Better Belly podcast by topic and find exactly what you need to expedite your healing. I cannot wait to see you in there. Catch you guys next week.